We are in many respects in a more precarious, challenging and potentially tragic position now than we were some months ago.
191 new infections, many of them discovered outside Melbourne's 12 locked down postcodes, with the source of 154 cases still unknown.
I think a sense of complacency has crept into us.
And those alarming numbers left the Premier with little choice but to lock down all of Melbourne.
The public health team have advised me to reimpose stage 3 stay-at-home restrictions. All of those metropolitan local government areas, plus Mitchell Shire, will be the subject of the stay-at-home order from midnight tomorrow night.
The lockdown will remain in place for a minimum of 6 weeks.
There is simply no alternative other than thousands and thousands of cases, many, many people in hospital, and the inevitable tragedy that will come from that.
Melburnians will only be able to leave their homes for work, food, exercise or medical care. And with the exception of senior secondary students, schools won't be reopening for term 3. But the rest of Victoria's not only been spared, they might see a further relaxing of restrictions.
We'll only be able to achieve that if we continue to contain within metropolitan Melbourne.
After Australia's early success, this latest pandemic setback comes with a timely warning.
This is not over. It is here and it is going to be with us for a very long time.
Dr Peter Collignon is an infectious diseases expert. He joins us now. Peter, will this be enough to flatten the curve?
Well, it should be, because anything we do that limits people's movements, but also particularly keeps people physically distancing crowd downs, should actually have an effect at levelling the curve and hopefully doing better than levelling the epidemic curve, but make it go down like it did a few months ago. But this is particularly concerning because the numbers in Melbourne are as big as they were 2 or 3 months ago. But 2 or 3 months ago, it was mainly overseas travellers and people from cruise ships. This is nearly all community transmission, so it means it's more widespread than we would have anticipated, and it means our efforts to stop the spread are going to have to be harder, and that particularly means what all of us do with each other, how close we get together, all those sorts of things are going to be vital to make sure we keep the risk down as low as we possibly can.
In this so-called second wave, we're seeing more case numbers, but we seem to be seeing less deaths. Is this a different strain of the virus?
No, I think it's probably the same strain. The reason we're not seeing deaths yet is because deaths take often 2 or 3 weeks to happen after the cases are found, because you get sick and then you go into hospital, you go to ICU. And it also depends on the age of the people. If you're over the age of 80 in Australia and you get COVID, there's about a 10% or more death rate. But if you're a 30-year-old, it's less than 0.1% or much less than 1 in 1,000. So the death rate is very dependent on the age group of the people that get it. And so we'll just have to wait to see. But whichever way you look at it, it's worth avoiding. Even if you're younger, you've got a 10 or 20 times higher chance of getting into hospital and dying than if you had influenza. And that's the same proportions if you're, 70 or 80-year-old. And the 20 and 30-year-olds might have milder disease, but they're the main ways it spreads to others, including older people who are more likely to succumb to it.
Professor, we saw a pretty stark warning there from Daniel Andrews saying we have to live with this virus for a long time. There's a lot of hope being pinned on finding a vaccine. What's the time frame for a possible end to this ordeal?
Well, if everything goes right with vaccines and we get a safe and effective vaccine, I realistically think that's still 18 months away, because it's that long before you can do all these studies and really check it works and that it's safe. So I think we're stuck with this for at least another year and probably 2 years, which means this virus can come back so easily. It can be, you don't have it in your community, or you think you don't have it, but it might be there at low levels. But in particular, it can come back from overseas because this is everywhere around globally. And even if you're doing quarantining and you think everything's under control, the example in Melbourne shows that basically it can go out of control. So that's why we all need to do the right things. Wash our hands, keep physical distancing, avoiding people who are sick, but even taking precautions ourselves, like wearing masks or face shields, for instance, because that, if you wear a face shield, means that if I cough or splutter, it doesn't go over others. If people cough and splutter, it doesn't go over in my face or eyes. And also it means I touch my face less often because I hit this instead of my face.
Trying to imagine a world where everyone's wearing that, and suddenly it seems like it might be realistic that that's in our short-term future. Peter, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and no doubt we'll speak again.
Thank you.